The hotel lobby was quiet, but not peaceful. Soft music played in the background. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling. Rich guests walked in and out, laughing, talking, showing off expensive clothes and shiny watches. The floor was clean like a mirror. Everything in that hotel said one thing: money lived here. Then the door opened. A black woman walked inside. She was not loud. She was not rushed. She did not look around in fear. She walked slowly, calm, holding a small bag in her hand. Her clothes were simple. No brand name. Nobody gathers. Just clean, plain, and neat. Her shoes were old, but polished. Her face showed no emotion, only quiet strength. Some guests looked at her. Some looked away. Some smiled, but not in a good way. Behind the front desk, the hotel manager noticed her too. He leaned back in his chair and watched her from head to toe. His eyes stopped on her bag, then her shoes, then her face. His smile slowly changed. It was not a kind smile. He whispered something to the receptionist. They both laughed softly. The woman walked to the front desk and stood there. "Good evening," she said in a calm voice. The manager looked at her like she did not belong. "Yes," he replied, slow and cold. "I need a room for the night," the woman said. "Just one room." The manager tapped his fingers on the desk and checked the computer, even though he already knew what he was going to say. "Well," he said loudly, so others could hear, "we are almost full." The woman nodded. "That's okay." The manager looked surprised. He was expecting questions, begging, maybe anger, but she just stood there. He cleared his throat. "We only have one room left," he said. "The cheapest one. Worst room in the hotel." He paused. Then he added, "Are you sure you can afford it?" A quiet laugh came from behind. Another guest shook his head and smiled. The woman looked straight at the manager. "That's fine," she said. "I'll take it." The manager raised his eyebrows. He did not like her confidence. "You understand," he said. "This room has no view. Old furniture. No special service." She nodded again. "I understand." He smiled wider now. "Good," he said. "Because people should stay where they fit." The receptionist looked uncomfortable. She passed the key slowly. "Room 217. The woman took the key. "Thank you," she said. She turned and walked toward the elevator. As the elevator doors closed, the manager laughed quietly. "She'll be gone by morning," he said. "They always are." Upstairs, the hallway was dark and silent. The carpet was worn out. The lights flickered. This part of the hotel felt forgotten. Room 217 was at the end. The woman opened the door. The room was small. The bed looked old. The window faced a brick wall. She placed her bag on the chair and stood still for a moment. She did not complain. She did not sigh. She did not look angry. Instead, she smiled slightly. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. One call. That's all she made. "Yes," she said quietly. "I'm here." There was a pause. "No," she continued. "Don't come yet." Another pause. "Tomorrow morning," she said. "They need to see it themselves." She hung up. Downstairs, the manager poured himself a drink. "Another easy night," he said. But what he did not know was that this woman did not come for comfort. She came for truth. And by morning, the worst room in the hotel would become the reason. This place would never feel the same again. Because the woman in room 217 was not who they thought she was. And the laugh in the lobby would soon turn into silence. The night grew quieter, but the hotel did not sleep. In room 217, the black woman sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress made a small sound when she moved. The air smelled old like dust and time. The light above her flickered, then stayed on. She looked around the room slowly. No anger, no fear, no regret, just observation. Downstairs, the hotel was alive with noise. Laughter echoed from the bar. Glasses clinked. Expensive shoes walked across shining floors. The same people who laughed earlier were now enjoying comfort, service, and respect. And they did not think about her. The manager stood near the desk, smiling proudly as he spoke to a guest. "Only the best for our customers," he said loudly. A waiter passed by and whispered, "What about the woman from earlier?" The manager waved his hand. "She got what she paid for," he replied. "People like her should be grateful." The waiter stayed quiet. Upstairs, the woman lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Her mind traveled far from that room. She remembered standing in places like this before, not as a guest, but unseen. She remembered doors closing softly in her face, smiles that were not real, respect that came only after proof. She had learned something long ago. Silence makes people reveal themselves. A knock came at her door. She stood and opened it. A young housekeeper stood there, holding towels. Her eyes were kind but nervous. "I'm sorry," the girl said softly. "They told me to bring these late." "That's okay," the woman replied. "Thank you." The housekeeper hesitated. "You deserve better," she whispered. The woman smiled gently. "I know." The girl walked away quickly. The woman closed the door and locked it. She sat again and took out her phone, scrolling slowly through messages, but not replying. Her screen showed names most people would never expect. Owners, directors, decision makers. She placed the phone face down. "No," she said quietly to herself. "Not yet." Midnight passed. Downstairs, the manager checked the night reports. He laughed with security and told stories. "Some people think confidence can buy class," he said, "but money speaks louder." Security laughed. What he did not know was that confidence had already bought something else. Time. Early morning came slowly. The sun had not risen yet when the woman stood up, dressed neatly, and fixed her hair. She looked the same as before, simple, calm, quiet. She walked out of room 217. As she passed through the hallway, staff members looked at her. Some looked away. Some stared. One cleaner smiled at her with respect. She returned the smile. In the lobby, the manager was already there drinking coffee. He saw her and smirked. "Checking out early?" he asked. "Didn't like the room?" She looked at him calmly. "It showed me exactly what I needed to see," she said. He laughed. "Good. Then we both got something." She nodded. "Yes," she replied. "We did." She sat down in the lobby chair, waiting. The manager frowned. "You know, checkout is later," he said. "You don't have to sit here." "I'm not checking out," she answered. "I'm waiting." "For what?" he asked. She looked at the front door. "For the morning." The manager shook his head and returned to his desk. Outside, the sky slowly changed color. And far away, engines started. The woman's phone vibrated once. She picked it up. One message. "We are 5 minutes away." She stood up, straightened her jacket, and for the first time, the hotel staff felt something change in the air, like the building itself was holding its breath. Because the woman who paid for the worst room was about to remind them all that power does not ask for permission, and humiliation is always temporary. The lobby clock ticked slowly. Every second felt louder than the last. The black woman sat in the chair near the window, her back straight, her hands resting calmly on her bag. She was not nervous. She was not impatient. She waited like someone who understood time better than everyone else in the room. The hotel staff moved around her, but no one spoke to her. To them, she was invisible again, and that was nothing new. Her mind drifted back, far away from the polished floors and quiet music. She remembered being a little girl, standing in her mother's worn shoes, watching adults talk over her head. She remembered being told to wait, always to wait. Wait for respect. Wait for chance. Wait for someone to believe her. So she learned not to wait. She learned to build. Years passed. She worked in silence while others made noise. She studied people, patterns, systems. She learned who held power and who only pretended to. She learned that the loudest voice in the room was often the weakest. And she learned one more thing. People judge before they listen. A memory crossed her mind. A boardroom. Long table. Expensive suits. She was the only woman. The only black face. They thought she was the assistant. No one offered her a seat. She let them talk. Then she spoke once, and the room went silent. Back in the hotel lobby, the manager glanced at her again. "She's still here," he whispered to the receptionist. "She says she's waiting," the receptionist replied. "For what?" he asked. The receptionist shrugged. She didn't say. The manager scoffed. "Some people don't know when to leave," he said. The woman heard every word. She said nothing. Her phone vibrated again. Another message. "Everything is ready." She placed the phone back in her bag. She looked around the lobby once more. She noticed the small things. The cracks behind the desk. The forced smiles. The way staff changed their tone depending on who stood in front of them. This place ran on judgment. And judgment always came with a cost. The elevator doors opened. A group of rich guests stepped out, laughing loudly. One man bumped into her chair and did not apologize. She stood up calmly and moved aside. He barely noticed. The manager watched and smiled to himself. See, he muttered. That's how the world works. But the world was already shifting. Outside, the sound of engines grew closer. Not one car. Many. The security guard at the door frowned and looked outside. Black vehicles rolled into view, one after another. Clean, quiet, controlled. The guard straightened his posture. The receptionist leaned forward. The manager stood up slowly. What's going on? He asked. The woman stood as well. She walked toward the front desk, her steps slow, steady, confident. The manager cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said, trying to smile again. Is there a problem? She looked at him. No, she replied. Not anymore. The door opened. Men in dark suits stepped inside. Their eyes scanned the room, alert and focused. They did not speak to anyone. They walked directly toward her. The lobby fell silent. The manager's face changed color. One of the men stopped in front of the woman and nodded. We're here, he said respectfully. She nodded back. Good, she said. I was starting to think they wouldn't learn. The manager opened his mouth, but no words came out. He finally understood something was wrong. Very wrong. The woman turned and looked at him again. Do you remember what you said last night? She asked calmly. He swallowed. I was just doing my job, he stammered. She tilted her head slightly. So was I, she replied. She reached into her bag and pulled out a simple folder. Inside were papers, names, signatures, ownership. She placed it on the desk, but did not open it yet. Before I show you who I am, she said softly, I wanted to see who you were. The manager's hands began to shake. The worst room, the quiet laughter, the fake smile. It all came back to him at once. And for the first time, he realized the woman he ignored was the woman who held the future of this hotel. And the day was only just beginning. The hotel lobby felt different now. Not louder, not quieter, heavier. Every sound seemed to pause in the air. Even the soft music from the speakers felt wrong, like it should not be playing anymore. The black woman stood at the center of it all. She did not raise her voice. She did not move fast. But everyone in the room felt her presence now. The same people who ignored her hours ago could not look away. The manager swallowed hard. The men in dark suits stood behind her, silent and alert. Their eyes missed nothing. They were not guests. They were not staff. They were here with purpose. Who are you? The manager finally asked, his voice shaking. The woman looked at him calmly. I'm the guest you put in the worst room, she said. A few staff members exchanged nervous looks. That was a mistake, the manager said quickly. We can fix it. She smiled slightly. No, she replied. You show me the truth. That was the point. The security guard stepped closer to the desk. One of the men in suits raised his hand gently, signaling him to stay back. The guard froze. The receptionist's hands trembled as she held the keyboard. The woman turned toward the front desk and slowly opened the folder she had placed there. Inside were official documents. Clean pages. Clear words. The manager leaned forward trying to read. Then his eyes widened. His face drained of color. No, he whispered. She pointed to one line on the paper. My name, she said. Right there. He read it again. And again. The hotel was not just her investment. It was hers. The manager stumbled back a step. That's not possible, he said. I would have known. She shook her head. You knew what you wanted to see, she replied. Not what was real. One of the men in suits stepped forward. Ma'am, he said respectfully, the board members are on their way. The manager's knees felt weak. Board members. The same people who signed his contract. The same people who could end his career with one call. The woman nodded. Good, she said. They should hear this story in person. The manager's voice broke. I treated everyone the same, he lied. She looked at him. No, she said. You treated people by how they looked. Silence filled the lobby again. A rich guest slowly backed away, suddenly uncomfortable. A waiter stood frozen, holding a tray. The woman turned to the receptionist. You, she said gently. You followed orders? That matters. The receptionist's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Then the woman turned back to the manager. You laughed, she said. You judged. You decided my value before you knew my name. He tried to speak. She raised her hand. Stop, she said calmly. You've spoken enough. The doors opened again. 3 older men in suits walked inside, followed by another woman. Their faces were serious. Their steps were quick. The manager recognized them immediately. His heart dropped. Good morning, the woman said to them. They stopped in front of her. Good morning, one of them replied, surprised. We didn't know you were here. I came quietly, she said. I wanted to see everything. She gestured around the lobby. And now you have. The board members looked around, sensing the tension. One of them turned to the manager. What's going on? He demanded. The manager opened his mouth. No sound came out. The woman spoke instead. I checked in last night, she said. I was mocked, judged, sent to the worst room. The board members' faces tightened. I was treated as less, she continued. Not because of my behavior, not because of money, but because of how I looked. The manager dropped his head. One board member turned red with anger. Is this true? He asked sharply. The manager whispered, I didn't know who she was. The woman stepped forward. That, she said, is the problem. The room felt like it stopped breathing, because power had finally spoken, and it spoke softly. The silence in the lobby felt heavy. No one moved. No one spoke. All eyes were on the black woman. The manager stood frozen behind the desk, his face pale, his hands shaking. The truth had landed, and there was no place left to hide. One of the board members cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said respectfully, we sincerely apologize for what happened. The woman nodded, but her face stayed calm. This is not about an apology, she replied. It's about what your system allows. She turned slightly and looked around the lobby. The guests who once laughed now avoided her eyes. The staff who once ignored her now stood straight, nervous and quiet. The board member looked at the manager. Is this how you treat guests? He demanded. The manager tried to speak. I didn't know, he began. The woman raised her hand again. You didn't need to know who I was, she said softly. You needed to know who you were. The board member nodded slowly. You're right, he said. He turned to the receptionist. Prepare the presidential suite immediately, he ordered. For her. The receptionist's eyes widened. Yes, sir, she replied quickly. The manager stepped forward in panic. I'll escort her myself, he said. I'll make sure everything is perfect. The woman looked at him. No, she replied. You won't. His face tightened. She turned to one of the men in dark suits. Please, she said. He nodded. The manager stepped back, defeated. Moments later, the elevator doors opened. This time, the woman walked inside first. Not rushed, not smiling, just steady. The suite was high above the city. Large windows, soft lights, fresh flowers. The difference between room 217 and this place was painful to see. A staff member entered nervously. Is there anything you need? He asked. She looked at him kindly. Yes, she said. Bring me the same chair from room 217. The staff froze. The board members looked confused. She explained calmly. I want to remember where the judgment lived. The chair was brought. Old, simple, worn. It looked small in the large suite. She sat on it and looked out the window. Power does not erase memory. Downstairs, the manager sat alone in the office. The board members stood over him. You are suspended, one said. Another added, pending full review. The manager's voice broke. I was just doing what everyone does, he said. One board member replied sharply. That's why this had to end. Back in the suite, the woman took out her phone. She made another call. It's done, she said. A pause. Yes, she added. The lesson landed. She ended the call and stood. She walked to the mirror. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. Not because she won, but because she stayed true. She did not raise her voice. She did not insult. She did not revenge. She let truth do the work. A knock came at the door. The receptionist stood there, eyes filled with emotion. I'm sorry, she said. I should have said something. The woman placed a hand on her shoulder. You will, she replied. Next time. The receptionist nodded. Later that day, news traveled fast. Guests whispered. Staff talked quietly. Respect moved differently through the building. And the story became clear. The worst room was never about money. It was about mindset. And when mindset was exposed, power had no choice but to move. The woman looked out at the city once more. Tomorrow, more changes would come. But for now, she sat calmly in the suite. Not as a reward, but as a reminder. Because when people mock what they don't understand, they often stand in the presence of something far greater than themselves. Morning light filled the hotel, but it felt different now. Not warm, not welcoming, honest. Staff walked slower than usual. Voices were low, eyes were careful. The building itself felt like it was listening. In the manager's office, the door stayed closed. Inside, he sat alone. No phone calls, no laughter, no power. The same man who once ruled the lobby now waited in silence. Outside, the board members met with department heads. Their voices were firm. Their words carried weight. This hotel will change, one of them said, or it will fall. Heads nodded. Rules were rewritten. Training was ordered. Standards were reset. Not because of money, because of respect. In the suite upstairs, the black woman stood by the window. She watched staff move below like pieces on a board. Calm, ordered, careful. She did not enjoy the fall of the manager. She had seen this pattern before. People build walls with pride, then are shocked when truth knocks them down. A knock came at her door. One of the board members entered slowly. "May I?" he asked. She nodded. He stepped inside and sighed. "We failed," he admitted. "Not just him. All of us." She turned to face him. "Failure is not the worst thing," she said. "Refusing to learn is." He nodded. "What happens to him?" he asked carefully. "That's not my decision," she replied. "Justice doesn't belong to me alone." Downstairs, the manager was called into the conference room. He walked in with heavy steps. The board members did not sit. "You are terminated," one said directly. "No anger, no drama, just truth." The manager's shoulders dropped. "I gave years to this place," he said weakly. One board member replied, "You gave years to control, not care." The manager signed the papers. When he left the building, no one looked at him. The silence was louder than words. In the lobby, the receptionist helped a family check in. She smiled warmly, the way she wished she had before. The woman watched from a distance. Change begins small. Later, a staff meeting was held. The woman stood at the front. No microphone, no speech, just presence. "I didn't come here to punish," she said calmly. "I came to observe." Eyes locked on her. "When people think no one is watching," she continued, "they reveal who they are." She paused. "This hotel will no longer decide value by skin, clothes, or silence." The room was still. "Respect is not optional," she finished. Applause came slowly, then stronger. Not for her, for truth. After the meeting, a young bellboy approached her. "My mother works 2 jobs," he said nervously. "People treat her like she's nothing." The woman looked at him. "She's everything," she replied. "Never forget that." He smiled. That evening, the woman packed her bag. She did not plan to stay long. Before leaving, she walked through the lobby one last time. The same floor, the same lights, but not the same energy. The receptionist stopped her. "Thank you," she said. "You didn't have to do this." The woman smiled softly. "Yes," she replied. "I did." Outside, her car waited. As she stepped in, she looked back once more. Justice is not loud. It doesn't shout. It arrives quietly and stays forever. The hotel doors closed behind her, but the lesson stayed inside. Weeks passed after that night. The hotel still stood tall, shining in the city lights. Guests still came and went. Cars still stopped at the front door. On the outside, it looked the same, but inside, everything had changed. Staff greeted every guest with the same respect. No quick judgment, no cold looks, no whispers behind the desk. People listened more. They watched themselves. They remembered. The story had spread. Not in newspapers, not on screens, but in voices, in the break room, in the hallway, in quiet talks after work. The woman from the worst room, they called her. Some said she was an owner. Some said an investor. Some said something more powerful than both. But everyone agreed on one thing. She saw everything. One afternoon, a young black woman walked into the hotel. Simple clothes, small bag, calm face. The receptionist smiled warmly and said, "Welcome." No one laughed. No one judged. The lesson was alive. Far away, the woman sat in her office, high above the city. Large windows, quiet space, walls filled with books, not pictures. She looked at a message on her phone. The changes are holding. She smiled softly. She did not need praise. She did not need attention. She believed in quiet impact. Her assistant knocked. "Another hotel wants to meet," he said. "They heard about what you did." She nodded. "Tell them the same thing," she replied. "I don't test buildings. I test people." He smiled. That night, the old manager walked past the hotel. He stopped across the street. He did not go inside. He remembered the laughter, the judgment, the moment he decided someone's worth. And he understood something too late. Power doesn't announce itself. Back inside, a bellboy helped an elderly couple with their bags. He spoke kindly. He moved patiently. He remembered her words. Respect is not optional. And he lived by them. The hotel had become more than a place to sleep. It became a mirror. People saw themselves there. Good or bad. Truth or lie. The woman never returned. She didn't need to. Her presence stayed in every greeting, every fair decision, every second look. Because the worst room was never about a bed. It was about how easy it is to forget someone's humanity. And the suite was never about luxury. It was about dignity. Some nights, the receptionist told the story to new staff. Not to scare them, but to remind them. "You never know who stands in front of you," she would say. "And you don't need to know. Just be human." The woman's name was never spoken. It didn't matter. Her message was louder than any title. Never judge. Never assume. Never mock silence. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the reason the room exists at all. And sometimes, the black woman you place in the worst room is the one who owns the keys to every door. The end.